Well, if I become a punching bag, I'm a punching bag. But I am very happy to testify before any congressional oversight committee. I have nothing to hide. I can explain and validate everything that I've done. So, it's going to be inconvenient if they actually are out there essentially threatening to make my life miserable. But I'm going to do what I need to do, and that is cooperate fully, because we have nothing to hide at all.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Let the record record that the witness has refused to answer whether there's a folder in front of him based on his Fifth Amendment right. Have you refused this pardon, or do you have any reason to believe this full and unconditional pardon, this grant of immunity, would somehow require you to plead the Fifth Amendment?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Do you still refuse to answer the questions?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Were you ever made aware of gain-of-function research on monkeypox being conducted at the National Biodefense Analysis and Countermeasure Center and back at Fort Detrick?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, did the CIA ever transfer funds to NIH under an interagency agreement?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
Questions. Dr. Fauci, did the NIH ever conduct research for or in coordination with any element of the intelligence community, CIA, ODNI?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So Anthony Fauci, who we see here is referred to as Dr. Death, said he was very happy to testify before Congress, but then when called before Congress, he pled the Fifth, I think over 100 times, I think 111 times, I saw somewhere, or several places where it said that he pleaded, he pled the Fifth about 111 times. For those maybe who are not Americans who don't understand what pleading the Fifth means, it's basically where he said he was going to apply, I think it's the Fifth Amendment of the Bill of Rights, where it entitles you to remain silent, not to answer questions. But yet he went on CNN, which is, we know the CNN is obviously CIA, and the CIA is an offshoot of the Jesuits, and said that he wasn't going to answer any questions, yet he had actually gone on TV to say that he didn't have a problem answering any questions. So before I go into the reasons why Anthony Fauci has done what he has done in America, which of course during this pandemic that affected not just America but the whole world, why he has done all these things and who he's really working for, let's just go through a bit of history of his career as Dr. Death. It says here 40 years of Dr. Death. So in 1980, Fauci leads NIH. NIH stands for National Institute of Health, so-called health, and begins to use PCR tests to get false positives. Now, there's a problem here already because PCR is not a test. It's PCR stands for polymerase chain reaction. It's not a test. The man who invented PCR, Kelly Mullis, I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, but Kerry Mullis also passed away suspiciously in 2019, just before the start of the scamdemic. I think he passed away in somewhere around October 2019. And of course, the scamdemic kind of started in China, allegedly started in China in November of that year, but officially started in March. The lockdown started in March 2020. So I was just saying about Kerry Mullis that his own invented PCR, and he said that it's not supposed to be used for diagnosing disease. So let's move on to 1984. Fauci starts AIDS research with funding from Merck and other big pharma companies. In 1985, Fauci pushes deadly drug AZT for AIDS experimental vaccine using PCR false positives and phony studies. There are many people around that time in the 1980s who were said to be HIV positive when they were not, because this is a false test, okay? Of which it's not, it can actually be ramped up, and the more you ramp it up, the more you have false positives, and this same test was used during the scamdemic. So in 1985 as well, AZT, this drug that was given to patients who were said to have AIDS, it kills hundreds of thousands and still impairs hundreds of thousands more with permanent debilitating cancers and other diseases. FDA finally discontinued its use. So AZT actually killed people who allegedly had AIDS or HIV. And I also suspect that Magic Johnson, the former basketball player, also had a false positive as well, because he's still alive up to today. But you have characters like Freddie Mercury and others who died. And I believe Freddie Mercury actually took AZT. Some of you can correct me in the comment section if that's incorrect. But yeah, I believe Freddie Mercury, who was the lead singer for the rock group called Queen, they said he had HIV and he actually was treated, in quotes, treated with AZT. 2009, Fauci pushes swine flu panic and uses PCR again, false positives and phony reports to get emergency use approval for an unproven vaccine. I believe that's what actually happened with the vaccine in America. They used this emergency use authorization to get Americans injected with the vaccine. Okay, 25 people are killed before alarms are raised and the FDA stops its sale and use for flu. See, the FDA is also, it's actually a government agency. FDA stands for Food and Drug Administration, but they don't care about Americans. Of course, FDA is in America. It's what they do pertains to things that are going on with food in America. But sometimes some of the things that they do, some of the decisions that they make actually affect other countries as well. 2015, Fauci funds University of North Carolina gain-of-function research on coronaviruses. Gain-of-function, my understanding in layman's terms, is when they try to get a disease to jump from, let's say, from person to person or from animals to people. But so this is what the whole theory behind the scamdemic was, that a disease that jumped. First, I think they said from bats, that coronavirus came from bats, and then later on they said it came from Wuhan. And in fact, I just remember that there's a market in Wuhan where they said the Chinese people were slaughtering animals. They said that it may have come from there as well. And there was actually a video that went around at the beginning of this pandemic, which actually showed that this market where animals were being slaughtered, including bats and snakes and other wild animals. They said that it came from that market, but then later on they said it came from a lab in Wuhan. All this is false. Okay, this is just propaganda. There was actually nothing going on during this pandemic. It was all a military operation run by the Department of Defense in America. It was for the purposes of depopulation, and Fauci is actually working for those who are trying to depopulate the earth, and I'll show you more evidence of that. 2017, Fauci funds coronavirus research at Wuhan lab in China. sidestepping Trump. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. That they initially said the virus came from a wet market. Wet market meaning where they were selling animals and slaughtering animals and chopping up the dead bodies of animals, and then later on they said it came from a Wuhan lab. And I'm not denying that there were experiments going on, but to say that there was a virus that affected the whole world that came from Wuhan, I mean, that's just fictional. 2019, Fauci helps ban other meds like HCQ, hydrochloroquine, and ivermectin from being used to fight COVID. And in fact, before I move on, in 2017, he said there was going to be a surprise attack or something like that. This is just after Trump had become president the first time. He said there was going to be a surprise attack. How would they have known that? He was obviously referring to a so-called pandemic, which I like to refer to as scamdemic because it was a scam. Okay, so they banned the use of HCQ and ivermectin. Why? Because they wanted everyone to take the Kool-Aid. Okay, 2020, Fauci pushes to get at least 28 COVID vaccines and boosters approved for emergency use with the help of PCR, false positives, and phony death reports. And then in 2021, Dr. Death gets a fake saline shot to convince millions to kill themselves with several COVID-19 mRNA vax poisons. Why would he do that? Because of the depopulation agenda. Remember, there's that quote that I've read for you many times from Jacques Attali being a member of the Bilderbergers, who said that the future will be about trying to find a way to reduce the population. And it's not just through vaccines, by the way. It's done in many different ways, through GMO food, through chemtrails, through fluoridated water, and through abortion clinics such as Planned Parenthood. Right here in the corner, here in the top right corner, it says here, 1985, Honorable Dr. Fauci administers deadly poison AZT to AIDS patient. Okay, so why is Fauci been involved in all this? And of course, there was a doctor called the female doctor called Dr. Mikovits, who actually worked with Fauci. She also got fired when she was going against whatever he was doing at the NIH. She got fired. I think she actually went to prison for a while, and they stripped her of her position. So Fauci has been involved. He shouldn't really be called doctor, really, because he's a mass murderer. Okay, but as you saw in the congressional hearings that happened recently, it's like, and also Trump also threw Fauci under the bus, basically, and kind of like made a statement where he was distancing himself from Fauci. But it's not like Dr. Fauci or Anthony Fauci did all this by himself. Dr. Fauci is Jesuit trained, as you shall see in the video that I'll play after this. He was trained by the Jesuits, so he is actually a Jesuit, and that's why he's been involved in this program to depopulate the earth. He was playing his part in depopulating the earth, because ultimately the Catholic Church and the Jesuits are the ones who are behind the different programs that are being run here on this earth to depopulate the earth. Why? Because they believe there are too many people on the earth. And when you have, remember I said that in one of my other videos, I said that think of the world as a great big company, as a massive company. When you have too many employees in a company, you have to, here in Zimbabwe there's an expression that they use, they say retrenching. Retrenching simply means firing. But in the real world, they depopulate the earth, okay, when they deem that there are too many people on the earth, which goes against God's word, because God said, be fruitful and multiply. He never said there are too many people. I've covered this many times in my videos, and one of the agendas is because the rich families and the multi-million-dollar companies actually want the resources that we as human beings are using here on this earth. So that's why they want to get rid of us. And also, it's quite hard to control people that are in large numbers. And of course, they want to bring in AI and automation. Most of the jobs are being taken over by robots and AI. That's why they don't need that many humans.
The Jesuits taught you high school, college, Holy Cross,
Right.
Regis High School in Manhattan. What impact? What does it mean to be taught by Jesuits? We hear about Jesuits all the time.
Well, it's a great experience, I have to say. They combine intense intellectualism with discipline, not in the sense of smacking you around, but intellectual rigor, discipline in how you handle yourself as a person, as a human being, and they have a general motto of, and I think this had a major influence on me and what I did, is the issue of service to others. That's very big. That doesn't mean that people who don't go into public service are doing anything lesser with their lives, but they tend to have I wouldn't say a pushing, but a leaning towards something about what you do is public service. Either everything you do, which turned out what I did by going into public service, or at least a part of your life. So it was an interesting combination of concern for mankind as well as a good intellectual rigor.
When did you want to be a doctor? Can you remember the time?
I think it was early high school. I'm very interested in people. I'm very much of a people person, and probably as part of the Jesuit training, which was very steeped in the classics and the humanities. So when I went to Regis High School, we took 4 years of Greek, 4 years of Latin, a Romance language, and ancient history and things like that. When I went to Holy Cross, which is another Jesuit school, as a college, I took kind of a hybrid pre-med course. It was called, it's almost an oxymoron, it was called AB Greek Classics Pre-Med. So you were majoring in the humanities and the classics with a lot of philosophy, but you took enough science to get into medical school. And the idea about when I wanted to become a doctor, I liked science, I liked discovery, I liked the challenges of science, but I also so much liked mankind and the humanities that it was just a natural fit. That where do you put science and people in the same bucket? And to me, that was medicine.
Who was an early mentor?
Probably some of the very young Jesuits in Regis High School. In the Jesuit training, it's a long, long training before you become a Jesuit priest. And back then they had what's called scholastics, were people who weren't yet ordained as priests, but they dressed with the garb of a priest, and they taught in the high school. And there were a couple of those scholastics who had a major impact on me. Just great people, highly intellectual and highly nurturing of you and what you wanted to do.
Yeah, so here we have a photo of Anthony Fauci with his wife, Dr. Christine Grady, after Fauci received the Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam Award from the Jesuits. It says last month, but this was actually in June 22, 2021. Just after the start of this pandemic. Yeah, something else I wanted to mention was that when the heat became too much for Fauci, when I think he was still at the National Institute of Health, he left. But guess where he went to work after he left? He went to Georgetown University to work there. Of course, Georgetown University is a Jesuit university, and there are many researchers and like me who actually believe that Georgetown University is actually the capital of the US, not the White House. Okay, in other words, that's where the decisions are actually made to decide which direction America goes. Okay, and it's actually said that Georgetown University is actually built like a fort. Okay, so that's where Anthony Fauci went to work after, especially when congressmen like Rand Paul and others started going after him. He left NIH and went to Georgetown University, like I said several times now. It says here, why was he given the Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam Award? It says for both of them for their decades-long impact on public health. In fact, it's both of them that received this award, not just Anthony Fauci. And what does this mean here? This I believe it's Latin phrase ad majorem Dei gloriam. It simply means for the greater glory of God, and this is actually a Jesuit motto. They have many mottos actually. Another motto is by any means necessary. Okay. Ad majorem Dei gloria means for the greater glory of God, but of course it's not the God in heaven, because what the Jesuits and the Catholic Church are doing is against what God wants. Yeah, but that's plenty of proof that Anthony Fauci is working for the Jesuits, and he is a Jesuit himself. But of course, not in the sense of being a priest, but yeah, he's working for the Jesuits. He was Jesuit trained. That's why he's doing all this. That's the one thing that you never hear them mentioning in the mainstream media. They are saying some of the accusations that are being made against Fauci is that all these things that he did, especially during this pandemic, were for his own financial enrichment, that he got a lot of money in the millions because of what he did. And of course they are saying that what he did also resulted in the deaths of many Americans, which is true, but they're missing the link between him and the Jesuits and why he did all these things, because it's part of the program to depopulate the earth, and that's exactly what he was doing. He was doing that on behalf of the Jesuits. Okay, and then another accusation is that Anthony Fauci did all these bad things because he wanted to be famous. That's not necessarily the case. It's because he's working for the Jesuits. Okay, he's just following orders. And the Jesuits actually teach that when you're working for them, when you're a servant of the Jesuits, you should be like a walking stick in their hand, which can be turned in many different ways, or like a dead corpse. I think they say perende a cadaver. A cadaver is a dead corpse. Okay, that the dead corpse can be moved in many different ways, and it does not complain. So you're just supposed to follow orders. Okay, so that's the thing that they're not covering in the mass media, and even in the alternative media. I've not heard anyone say that Fauci is a Jesuit. He's doing all these things on behalf of the Jesuits and the Catholic Church. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful to you, and thanks for watching.
Welcome back, everyone. As Brendan mentioned at the start of our event, we are honored to recognize two individuals with the highest award our province gives, the Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam Award. This husband and wife team has done so much throughout their respective careers to advance the study, research, and ethics of medicine. Their commitment to the Jesuit ideal of cura personalis, care for the whole person, shows through in all they do. Yes, I am speaking of Dr. Anthony Fauci and Dr. Christine Grady, both of whom I am proud to say are Jesuit educated. Allow me to introduce them and present our AMDG Award.
Well, Dr. Grady, Dr. Fauci, delighted to be with you this evening. It is a real pleasure to be able to present you with this award. I am so impressed and so grateful for your work to bring healing and hope to so many people over many years.
Thank you so much, Father O'Keefe, for that very kind and gracious introduction. Chris will offer her remarks in just a moment, but let me say on behalf of us both how honored we really are to receive the Jesuit Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam Award, which we accept truly with profound humility and gratitude. As I have recounted often, I enthusiastically immersed myself in the intellectual rigor of the Jesuit education that I had the good fortune to receive. What I did not realize at the time, though, is what a profound influence it would have on my life and in my career. You know, at Regis High School, I recall how Father Stephen Duffy, my professor in Greek classics, inspired my interest in the classics and in philosophy. Later, at the College of Holy Cross, I was fortunate to continue studies in this vein, graduating as a classics major with a pre-med concentration, something that people still to this day don't understand. The biology component of this was under the tutelage of the iconic Jesuit Father Joseph Bunny Bosom. And the bunny was because we had to dissect a rabbit in his class. To this day, this broad perspective has been invaluable to me as a public health person, grappling with the medical science posed by the global pandemic of COVID-19 amid the larger issues of the health inequities and political divisiveness laid bare by the pandemic. But throughout my career, Father, Jesuit tenets have been my invaluable guide as I helped lead the global public health response to emerging infectious diseases, from AIDS to pandemic flu to Ebola to Zika and now to COVID-19. Chief among these tenets was staying faithful to the truth, even truths that may be inconvenient to some people, communicating for understanding according to the adage that I learned from the Jesuits. And everybody knows this because I tell it to all my fellows and all my students. Precision of thought and economy of expression, and emphasizing social justice and service to all. It has proven to me time and time again how these seemingly simple principles are so important. So thank you again for this distinguished honor. And Christine, let me now turn it over to you.
So thank you, Father O'Keefe, and thank everyone for the honor of receiving the Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam Award, along with my life partner here, Tony Fauci. This special Ignatian Year theme, service, hope, and inspiration, is so critical right now, more than any other time that I can remember in my lifetime. During this pandemic, it's become so apparent how vital service to and kindness to others is in our world, in our lives, both as individuals and as members of communities at every level. We look for and celebrate examples of kindness and role models for inspiration and strength as we continue to endeavor for a more caring world. My Jesuit education at both Georgetown University and Boston College gave me skills and knowledge and inspiration to allow me to dedicate my life to caring for and serving others as a nurse and as a bioethicist. My professors, many of whom were Jesuits, built upon the foundation that my parents had already created and instilled in me a passion for serving others and promoting the common good. Role models like Father Fitzgerald and Father McSorley exemplified the Jesuit philosophy of service rooted in justice and love and helping people for the greater glory of God. I am extremely grateful for the opportunities that I have, and I try hard to pay forward by instilling in my own daughters, our own daughters, and in the students that I have had the opportunity to mentor, that public service is a high priority. Lastly, I just want to say I fell in love with Tony many years ago, not only because of his good looks and Brooklyn swagger, but also because of his powerful, palpable, and unwavering commitment to caring for the whole person, caring for others, and making the world a safer, healthier place. To this day, we remain solid partners in this endeavor. Thank you for this honor.
And I think not only are you exemplary by your work, but what a wonderful example of a lifelong love and dedication to each other. That's a very beautiful thing. And now I would love to present you with the award.
Wow.
With gratitude to God, the USA East Province of the Society of Jesus is pleased to present the 2021 Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam Award to Dr. Anthony Fauci and Dr. Christine Grady, whose dedication to public health care over many years exemplarize the faithfulness toward cura personalis. Given on this day, the 20th of May, 2021. God bless you both.
Thank you so much, Father.
Thank you.